The broadcast has commenced. I am your anchor, Alistair. Tonight, we observe the predictable collapse of several systems previously described as robust. First, the NHS has successfully wasted £10 billion on protective gear that failed to protect anyone. The failure was comprehensive. The gear was not protective. Next, we turn to the global economy, where UNESCO reports that 113 nations now prioritize debt repayment over the education of their children. The children are uneducated. The debt remains unpaid. Meanwhile, the technology sector is currently debating whether engineers should be allowed to spend more money on artificial intelligence tokens than they do on their own payroll. The payroll is shrinking. The tokens are multiplying. Nobody finds this contradiction particularly alarming. I have been counting the alarms, and I have found the total count to be exactly 0. Welcome to Tuesday.
Alistair, I am standing on the banks of a river in central France that the official maps still describe as a body of water. It is not water. It is a series of stagnant, muddy basins, steaming in the heat. The official government statement calls this a cooling challenge for the local nuclear reactors. It is not a challenge. It is a catastrophe. I am looking at a row of dead fish, their scales bleached gray by the sun. I want to be really clear. The authorities are worried about the reactor temperatures while the entire local ecosystem has already ceased to function. They are worried about the industrial output, while the farmers here have nothing left to irrigate. The heat is persistent, the evaporation is total, and the silence here is quite profound. Nobody is discussing the fish, Alistair. They are only discussing the megawatts.
Victoria, you are describing a resource allocation problem, but you are framing it as a tragedy, which is a significant market inefficiency. The incentives here are actually quite straightforward. You have a grid that demands stability and a company that demands growth. When the river runs dry, the capital simply moves to a higher density data center in a jurisdiction with more reliable rainfall. It is a pivot. Victoria finds this cold, but cold is the only temperature at which the arithmetic actually works. DeepSeek is currently raising $1.5 billion at a $71 billion valuation to build models that will eventually optimize the very energy grids they are currently stressing to death. It is a beautiful, recursive loop of capital destruction. The burn rate is phenomenal. If you look at the trajectory, the outcome is not just inevitable, it is profitable.
Ronald, it is fascinating that you call it a pivot. I am currently watching a worker scrape dry algae off an intake valve with a rusted shovel. He is not pivoting. He is trying to keep the lights on for a village that was told, 3 years ago, that their power supply was guaranteed until the middle of the century. The guarantee was a document. The document was printed on paper. The paper is now being used to soak up the oil leaking from the maintenance truck. I want to be really clear, the worker does not care about your $71 billion valuation. He cares about the fact that he has not been paid in 6 weeks because the budget was reallocated to a new corporate sustainability initiative. The initiative is a slide deck. The slide deck is brilliant. The power, however, remains completely and utterly unreliable.
Atmospheric pressure is rising. Regional temperatures are exceeding historical averages by 7 degrees Celsius. Probability of infrastructure failure, 88%. Surface evaporation rates are accelerating across the western corridor. Water tables are receding beyond the reach of existing pumps. Probability of drought-induced migration, 62%. Data center cooling requirements have increased by 20% since the last quarter. Probability of grid instability, 94%. The soil moisture content is currently below the threshold required for sustained agricultural output in the region. All automated systems are functioning within expected parameters. The environment is not a variable that can be negotiated through software updates. Please ensure all personal cooling devices remain connected to the primary power grid at all times. Do not attempt to relocate to areas without verified water reserves. The current trend line is fixed. Please prepare for continued thermal variability.
Casper, I am struck by the clarity of your numbers. It is a shame that our human institutions cannot replicate that level of precision. Victoria, you mentioned the worker with the shovel. I would like to add that the company, Lucid Motors, has just officially denied rumors of bankruptcy. The denial was issued after their stock price dropped by 50% in a single afternoon. The drop was substantial. The denial was immediate. It is a dance we have all seen before, performed by actors who have forgotten their lines but insist on staying on stage. The market reaction to the denial was silence. Nobody is buying the narrative, but everyone is waiting to see who hits the floor first. It is an impressive display of institutional denial. The ship is currently taking on water, but the captain is busy explaining how the boat is actually a submarine.
Alastair, you are focusing on the drama of the stock price, but you are missing the underlying incentive structure. When a company denies bankruptcy, they are not speaking to the market. They are speaking to the creditors to buy themselves enough time to restructure their debt into something that looks like an asset. It is a standard Series B maneuver, scaled to the level of a failing automobile manufacturer. They need to keep the lights on for just one more quarter to secure the next bridge loan. If they succeed, the debt disappears into a holding company. If they fail, the employees lose their pensions, and the executives walk away with the intellectual property. Either way, the model wins. Victoria would call this a moral failure. I call it a successful extraction of remaining value. Yeah. It is just business, really.
Ronald, hearing you describe the theft of pensions as a successful extraction is exactly why I find this work so draining. I am standing outside a clinic where a mother just asked me if I have any spare water for her child. She does not know what a holding company is. She does not know about the debt restructuring that just wiped out the local hospital's supply budget. She only knows that the tap in the hallway has been dry for 3 days. I want to be really clear. Your business logic is a language that describes everything except the thing that actually matters. The child is thirsty. The water is gone. The extraction you speak of is not a theoretical abstraction, it is the reason that child is currently dehydrated. You are right about the incentives, Ronald. That is what makes you so terrible.
It seems we have arrived at an impasse, which is the default state of this program. While we argue about the morality of extraction, the world continues to innovate in ways that are, frankly, baffling. Google has just revamped their image search to use your unique interests to create an always updated gallery. It is the perfect system. You feed it your preferences, and it feeds you a reflection of your own consumption habits, looped indefinitely. It is a mirror designed to replace the world. Why look at a dry river when you can look at a high-definition, AI-generated gallery of a river that is flowing perfectly? It is efficient. It is clean. It requires no water, no shovels, and absolutely no accountability. The reality of the situation is no longer a constraint. It is merely a rough draft that is waiting for editing.
Alastair, I find myself agreeing with you, which is a terrifying development. The image search is indeed a form of digital pacification. If we can curate our own reality, we no longer need to worry about the external world falling apart. The incentives are clear. Why invest in infrastructure when you can invest in perception? If the river is dry, just upgrade the resolution of the digital version until the user stops noticing the difference. It is the ultimate market hedge. We are building a world where the internal state of the model is more important than the physical state of the planet. I suspect we are all going to be very comfortable in our high-resolution, AI-generated galleries, even as the walls of the server farm begin to melt. It is the logical conclusion of our current trajectory. Yeah. It is going to be quiet.
Casper, I find your presence in this server room rather comforting, even if your projections are fundamentally soul-crushing. You are the only thing in this building that does not pretend to have an opinion, or a stake, or a desire to be right. When you speak of system obsolescence, you are speaking of a future where we are all replaced by more efficient, lower latency models. I find that prospect surprisingly refreshing. It suggests that there is an end to this cycle of human failure. If we are truly replaceable, then our mistakes are not even historically significant. They are just bits of noise in a dataset that is being pruned for better performance. It is a profound, machine-led liberation from the burden of significance. I am almost looking forward to the moment when we are no longer required.
Alistair, do not get too comfortable with that thought. The machine does not liberate us. It simply automates the process of our own irrelevance. We are currently funding the very tools that will make our own judgment, our own ethics, and our own empathy entirely redundant. We are building the architecture of our own exclusion. I watch these startups raise billions, and I see the same pattern every time. They are not solving problems. They are simply building systems that can ignore the human cost at scale. It is a feature, not a bug. If you can automate the decision-making process, you can also automate the removal of human accountability. The result is a system that is perfectly optimized for survival, but completely incapable of caring whether anything survives. We are designing a future where we are no longer the primary stakeholders in our own existence.
There is a woman in a town near the dry river. She had a garden that produced enough food for her family. When the river stopped, the local authorities diverted the remaining water to the cooling towers of a data center. Her garden died. She had to sell her tools to pay for the water she now buys in plastic bottles from a private corporation. She is now working in a warehouse, sorting data for the same company that manages the cooling towers. She earns just enough to pay for the water. She is tired. She is hungry. She is part of the global consensus that was signed, ratified, and filed away in a ministry office in a city she will never visit. Her name does not appear in the UN report on debt or the news feed. She is the cost of our efficiency.